And we are back, baby. Week 9, wide receivers. We're talking about them. So thank you for joining us today on this episode. We are recording this before Thursday Night Football. So FYI, if this comes out, it's coming out on Friday, but we're recording before Thursday Night Football. So if things change, this is why our rankings are this way. This is what it is. So there are going to be some changes since then. But overall, this is our consensus ranking between Jeremy and myself, the FF Universe, putting them together. So we are doing the consensus ranking. It's a nice little touch. Jeremy, how are you feeling about the wide receivers this week?
Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit better because right now, as of a minute ago, Derek Carr returned to practice for the Saints today on a Wednesday, which is a rest day. He's back. We're expecting Derek Carr to play in this one. We're also expecting Taysom Hill to play in this one. Wheels up, Chris Olave. I'm feeling really good about him this week.
Yeah, he keeps moving up. I was looking at consensus rankings. He was outside the top 30, and I'm like, folks, you guys realize Carr's playing, right?
What are we doing?
And what are we doing here? Yeah, so I'm gonna push him borderline top 12. Like, I know where he's at in rankings right now, and I need to change that. But yes, that's what we'll have him. But anyways, we might as well jump into these, start this fun stuff going. So we're gonna talk about our first 6 wide receivers, our tier 1 of wide receivers. And no surprise, the best wide receiver in the NFL is starting it out, Justin Jefferson against the Colts. We have CeeDee Lamb coming off that monster performance, going up that where he won some teams some weeks, going up against the Atlanta Falcons defense, which can be had. Jamar Chase comes in our wide receiver 3, going up against a depleted, just not so good Las Vegas Raiders defense. Our wide receiver 4, A.J. Brown, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in a game that should provide plenty of fireworks for the Philadelphia Eagles. Drake London as our wide receiver 5, going up against that Dallas Cowboys defense, which had a difficult day, and they will definitely have a difficult day against Drake London in that offense. And the guy rounding out, Mr. Consistency, Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 6, going up against the Green Bay Packers. How are you feeling about these top 6 wide receivers, Jeremy?
Yeah, love them all. Obviously, they're locked into your lineups, but let's talk a little bit about the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy, the number 1 wide receiver in our hearts, Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase has finally been putting it together this season from a consistency perspective. He's always been there doing it boom bust, massive games, but he's really been able to unlock a level of consistency that we haven't seen from him before. In the last 6 games, he scored 5 times. In 2 of those games, in the last 6 games, he scored in 5 of them. 2 of those games, he scored multiple touchdowns. So Jamar Chase is absolutely crushing it right now. He was the wide receiver 8 in half PPR last week against Philly, who's been really good in the secondary lately. So against Las Vegas, he's absolutely going to slaughter them. I am surprised that I don't have him at wide receiver 1. He's my wide receiver 2 this week. Still, Jamar Chase is going to crush.
Yeah, the one guy I will also highlight is A.J. Brown. He's been awesome. Yeah. He's wide receiver 2 in points per game basis.
For sure.
He gets a really juicy matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, which gives up a ton of receiving yards. So expect both those wide receivers to go off. It's just they don't have anybody that can cover A.J. Brown. In fact, I don't think there's a quarterback in the NFL that can actually cover A.J. Brown, right? So this is the juicy group of wide receivers. If you have them, you love life. You know they're going to probably at least put up 15 points, push into that 20, 25-point range. This is the good life we're talking about. Let's jump to our tier 2. Guys that we really, really like. Wide receiver 7 through 12. We are starting out with Malik Nabers going up against the Washington Commanders defense, and I wish the Commanders defense luck trying to stop Malik Nabers. The next guy, Tyreek Hill, wide receiver 8. He is back. We finally saw Tyreek Hill bounce back with Tua Tagovailoa. He gets the Buffalo defense. That's going to be an interesting one for him. That's why he's a little bit lower for us, but we still like Tyreek. We love him a lot, actually. Wide receiver 9, Terry McLaurin going up against the Giants. So as you can see here, we have 2 wide receivers in the top 10 in that game. It should be a very, very fun matchup with Terry going against that defense. Wide receiver 10, Puka Nacua going up against my Seattle Seahawks defense. And all I can say is good luck to my Seattle Seahawks defense. It is going to be a rough day. Wide receiver 11, guess what? Who's there? His running mate, Cooper Kupp. So, yes, you can tell we are firing up both Puka and Kupp everywhere.
Damn right.
Damn good matchup. Like, yeah, I'm expecting 30-plus points from the Rams in this game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do not like it. And wide receiver 12, the running mate, Devonta Smith. He is going up against Jacksonville Jaguars defense. We just talked about them. We are firing up Devonta Smith everywhere. Who is the guy you want to highlight in this group?
Yeah, with these groups of wide receivers, the Rams are playing the Seattle Seahawks. No question why Puka and Cooper Kupp are in the top 12. The Philadelphia Eagles are playing Jacksonville. No question why A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are here in the top 12. But I want to talk about Terry McLaurin. We just talked about Jamar Chase in terms of his consistency. Terry McLaurin has been consistent. We were thrilled that the Washington Commanders came out and drafted Jaden Daniels. We were thrilled that Jaden Daniels looked like the real deal in the preseason. We were thrilled and continue to be thrilled by Jaden Daniels, including that monster come from behind win on a bomb. That wasn't to Terry McLaurin, but everything else was 8 targets in that game. 8 targets seems to be his kind of the level that he hits routinely in most games this season. He put up 125 yards. He's getting there at like mid-range wide receiver 2 without scoring a touchdown most weeks. So when he does score a touchdown, you know he's going to go off. Against the New York Giants, Terry McLaurin is going to score a touchdown.
Yeah, he started out slow his first 2 games. Ever since then, he hasn't had less than 6 targets. He's been above 52 yards. He's really good. I was surprised he did as well as he did against the Chicago Bears defense because the Chicago Bears defense is really good, and he tore them up. 5 for 125, like that is gashing them. So yeah, Terry's awesome. I was worried about Jaden Daniels going into the year, like just because he's a rookie quarterback showed it. He showed me more than enough. Like he's just awesome. So yeah, we love Terry. Rest of the season, like you just fired up Terry each and every week. We're going to our tier 3 wide receivers. It gets a little bit interesting here. We're starting with Garrett Wilson. That offense needs to figure it out. It is a tough matchup against the Houston Texans. We will see if they can in this week. I don't know, but we like him. He's a really good wide receiver. It is what it is. Next up, this one's probably extremely spicy. Josh Downs, wide receiver 14, going up against the Minnesota Vikings defense, which gives up a ton of yards to wide receivers. Josh Downs is the wide receiver 1 on that offense. Pittman is dealing with injuries. We're expecting a monster PPR game from Josh Downs. That's why he's a wide receiver 14. Next up, DJ Moore, wide receiver 15, going up against Arizona Cardinals defense that has had problems throughout the year. We like DJ Moore a lot. Hopefully, Caleb can get right and figure it out because that offense has been really up or down. But we like DJ Moore as like, mid-range wide receiver too. Wide receiver 16, Devontae Adams, the second wide receiver for the Jets, rounds it out. You know what we're doing there. We're firing both those guys up. Wide receiver 17, Amari Cooper, going against the Miami Dolphins defense. So that is another wide receiver in a matchup where we've had 2 of them already. We're firing up Amari Cooper. There's some question marks about it, but we'll get into that in a second. And wide receiver 18, a guy I think we're probably too low on. We probably need to rank a little bit higher. Chris Olave, Derek Carr is back. He's going up against the Carolina Panthers defense. And honestly, I think that's all we really have to talk about with that. Like, they're just that bad. Who do you want to highlight in this tier?
I would love to talk Chris Olave, but I have to talk about Josh Downs. Josh Downs, we called him quarterback proof, and once we did, he just threw up a dud against Miami 2 weeks ago. What did he do? He just came back with Anthony Richardson with 9 targets and only on 4 receptions, over 100 yards and a touchdown. Yes, it was on a broken play, but it doesn't matter because it's no longer Anthony Richardson, it's Joe Flacco. Josh Downs is going to eat in this game 5. Yeah, okay. 9, 12, 9. 3, and then 9 targets this season for Josh Downs. He's a steady double-digit target guy, and especially with Joe Flacco, chucking the ball, especially against Minnesota, who is going to score a ton against this Indianapolis Colts defense. This, I think, has the sneaky potential to be a high-scoring shootout. I like Josh Downs to do what he did last week. Oh, ho-hum, just the wide receiver 6 on the week.
Yeah, no big deal. Just did that with Anthony Richardson as well. In the 3 games, like you pointed out with Flacco, he has not had less than 9 targets, less than 7 receptions, or less than 66 yards. He's been very, very good. Steichen's offense is really beneficial for him, and it's really hard to guard him out of the slot. Like, it's really difficult matchup. So we're excited to start Josh Downs this week. I know it's been very up or down. As long as Flacco's the quarterback, you put Josh Downs in your lineup, you don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Our tier 4, we'll kind of get into a little bit here. Cortland Sutton starts it out against the Baltimore Ravens defense, which this is why we like Bo Nix a lot, is because the Ravens just struggle in coverage. Like, they just cannot deal with the pass. He's the top 20 wide receiver this week. We're firing up. Our wide receiver 20, Jaden Reed. And going up against the Lions, this is why, because the Lions defense is atrocious against the pass. There is Malik Willis, but with Jaden Reed being as talented as he is, we're still firing up Jaden Reed. Wide receiver 21, the first Baltimore Ravens wide receiver, Zay Flowers, going up against a Denver matchup, which could be trouble, but he is more of a slot wide. He's going to be in the slot a little bit more, so I like him a little bit more than, say, Deontay Johnson. He's a wide receiver 21. Khalil Shakir, our second Buffalo Bill. He is our wide receiver 22 going up against Miami. Darnell Mooney, the second Falcons wide receiver. He's a wide receiver 23 going up against Dallas. And Marvin Harrison Jr., people were probably waiting for that name to come up. He is our wide receiver 24 going up against Chicago, and he is a player you significantly lower than consensus on. Do we want to start talking about Harrison or we talk about somebody else?
No, we're going to talk about somebody else, but I will say on Harrison, I am far, far too low on him. Probably he's my wide receiver 30 this week. Listen, we saw him go off last week. That's great. I just think Chicago puts it together and figures it out against Marvin Harrison. They don't have the weapons, and you know who they won't figure it out against is Trey McBride. I think he's going to go off in this one, but Harrison, I predict, will have a down game. The guy I do want to talk about is Cortland Sutton. I hate this wide receiver on my fantasy team because I do not know what to do with him. Some days he goes off. Sometimes he gets double-digit targets. He catches 8 balls like he did last week for 100 yards. Sometimes he gets 6 targets and catches 2 of them for 32 yards. I just don't know what to do with this guy. He's got a phenomenal matchup. He absolutely torched Carolina last week. He's absolutely going to torch Baltimore this week. Everyone is going to torch Baltimore, and Bo Nix is going to crush. He is flying up our ranks weekly. I went and picked him up in redraft, one quarterback league, and spent a little bit of fab on him. Nobody else did. People don't like Bo Nix. I don't get it. He's got the rushing floor. He's killing it through the air, and he gets another cupcake matchup with Baltimore, and they can't run on him. They have to throw the ball. So, yeah, give me Cortland Sutton this week.
Yeah, like Baltimore gives up 311 passing yards a week. Like I think this is the thing people don't realize about the Ravens defense. It is atrocious on the back end. They cannot stop people against the pass. It is a pass funnel defense, the highest pass rate over expectation, because no one can run against the Ravens defense. So what happens is team get negative game script and they just air it out. I'm expecting Bo Nix to do that. I will expect some turnovers from Bo Nix in this game.
Oh, sure.
Fantasy points are going to come. Cortland Sutton has been the best wide receiver there. There are a couple other guys. I think Devon Vele could have a good game. Troy Franklin's too boom bust, but we know Sutton's our best wide receiver. That is why we're putting him there. It's a good matchup. You fire him up. The Harrison thing is interesting. Like I'm more trusting the usage from last week. If we see that where they give him crossers across the middle, they're doing some different things instead of sending him all these freaking go routes where they're giving him easier routes that are more successful, higher percentage for fantasy. I like that. I'm willing to bet on it. I am down a little bit on him, but overall, I'm trusting Pensig, which that might be like knock on wood. That might be a terrible idea, right? So we will see how that works out for him. Yeah. I am very curious to see how they use him in this game because if they use him like last week, that consistency, he could be a lot more higher floor and be a better for you. But overall, that's where he falls for 24. It kind of makes sense. Rounding out our next tier, wide receivers 25 through 30. Starting it out, Tank Dell. We need you, baby. Tank Dell, you got to figure it out. It's a bad matchup against the Jets defense. He is our wide receiver 25, starting right there. Our wide receiver 26, Jacoby Myers, a guy that just consistently puts up stats and is just a good NFL wide receiver. Doesn't have the name cachet, but he is their wide receiver 1. Him and Brock Bowers. You can fire those guys he's putting every week, especially against the Bengals defense. It's not very good. Wide receiver 27, Ladd McConkey going up against a Browns defense. This one might sound a little spicy, but Ladd's just by far the best wide receiver. Looks really good. Oh, yeah. Wide receiver 28, Jalen Waddle. Falls down a little bit because we're expecting a big HN game. We're expecting a big Mostert game. We're expecting a big Tyreek Hill game. So that's why it falls wide receiver 28 against Buffalo. Wide receiver 29, Jackson Smith and Jigba against the Los Angeles Rams. Hey, JSN, similar to Tank Dell. We need to see something from you. Like he was the focal point of the offense last week. It did not go very well. Hopefully they turn the corner. And the last guy who gets ramped up, he had the down week last week. That's DeAndre Hopkins for the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, which very much can be had in the back end. So who do you kind of want to highlight in this tier of wide receivers?
I am ridiculously high on Ladd McConkey. It's a bad matchup against Cleveland. They are in Cleveland. I don't care. This team runs the football like J.K. Dobbins is possessed. It's just ridiculous the way that he is able to fight for and continually gain yards. They're utilizing a few other guys in the backfield, but this is a J.K. Dobbins show. And Jim Harbaugh has proven that his offense, where they're just kind of ground and pound, leads to these opportunities down the field in the play action passing game. And Justin Herbert is elite. We saw it come to fruition last week. He connected with Ladd McConkey on 2 touchdown passes. Ladd was the wide receiver 2 last week. I'm chasing the points in a really, really tough, much tougher matchup this week at Cleveland. I just think he keeps it going. He's too good. It's the second half of the year, rookie wide receiver. He's just going to continue to show why he was picked as highly as he was this week. And, Ladd or Brock Bowers in fantasy, I think that might be a discussion by the end of the year. Ladd could easily be a top 16 wide receiver option for you.
I think he's a very, very good wide. Like we're seeing with this wide receiver class, the rookies, there's a lot of very good options in it. And a lot of guys that are going to be consistent for you. Ladd's really good. I guess he just needs to stay healthy. Like that's his biggest problem because him in the slot is it's too easy for him. And I say that because he's just really good on the slot. He can beat both coverages. He's awesome. I do want to highlight Jacoby Myers here. Without Devontae Adams, his targets 9 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets, and 7 targets. I get it. It's a bad offense. I don't care. He's going to see a high target percent. He's going to be the focal point, first reads, all that fun stuff. Particularly against the Bengals defense, which you just got absolutely destroyed last week against Philadelphia. They have struggled throughout the season, so I know it might not be a sexy play, but you should be firing up Jacoby Myers and expecting decent floor with a potential chance for high ceiling. So this is still a good range of wide receivers, right? It starts to kind of fall off here our next year, wide receivers 31 through 36, where there's a little bit more warts, right? We have a few more question marks. Michael Pittman has a great matchup against Minnesota, but Pittman has struggled significantly. While we have him top 31, we like the matchup. Wide receiver 32, the guy that everyone's talking about, Cedric Tillman, going up against the Chargers in a tough matchup. So that's why he's kind of in this range. You probably would expect us to have him higher. We're going to expect the volume there. Still TBD on that. Wide receiver 33, another Buffalo Bills wide receiver, Keon Coleman. We like Keon Coleman. He's shown enough. He leads all rookies in YAC. Like he's a good player. We'll see how it works out. I'm curious to see how the offense moves moving forward with the addition of Amari Cooper. Wide receiver 34, Calvin Ridley. We'll talk about Ridley in a second. I get it. You just got to trust the process with Ridley. He makes the wide receiver 34. Wide receiver 35, Xavier Worthy is there going up against Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. And wide receiver 36, T. Higgins going up against the Vegas defense. Why we are so low on him is I'm not expecting him to play because Jeremy has him at 24. I have him at 49 right now. So I'm not expecting him to play. If he does play, we're going to boost T. Higgins out.
For sure.
Who do you kind of want to highlight in this tier of wide receivers?
Yeah, great matchup for T. Will definitely boost him if he plays. I would love to talk about Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman is just, kind of a waiver wire darling for us. He's someone who was often overlooked in Dynasty League drafts until the second round, sometimes fell later and later, and he's absolutely been crushing it. But I can't talk about Keon Coleman because we have to talk about Cedric Tillman. Cedric Tillman, the hype is out of control. People on Reddit, we've been fighting on Reddit this week. People on Reddit hate Bo Nix, and they absolutely love Cedric Tillman. I just sold Cedric Tillman in a Dynasty League and Darnell Mooney for a first-round pick. People are in love with Cedric Tillman. I don't understand it. Look, 12 targets and 9 targets back-to-back weeks. We had Jameis come in. He was the wide receiver 3 last week. He was, I think, probably the first guy who was picked up off of waivers, inserted into lineups with the expectation that he would perform well, and absolutely dominated. I think he was the first guy who did that this year. If I can't remember anybody else who absolutely dominated on the waiver week, and I think that's why his hype is so high. Look, Cedric Tillman seems to be like a good wide receiver. We know Jameis Winston is going to chuck it, but this schedule is rough. They're facing the Chargers here. I do not expect them to go absolutely nuclear. Could Cedric Tillman see another 7-8 targets this game? Yeah. Do I think he's going to get 100 yards and score 2 touchdowns in this game? No. So that's really my concern with Tillman. I just think the hype is out of control. I'm selling everywhere I can because some people absolutely love this guy. I think he's going to be fine. Could you flex him this week if you had to? Sure. Do I think you have to? No.
Yeah, it really comes down to the matchups they played. Both Cincinnati and Baltimore are top 6 in adjusted fantasy points allowed at the position. By the way, this is why we love the Broncos this week in this matchup because they're playing Baltimore. Tillman, it's just a tough matchup, and you kind of have to accept that. I get it. He's the guy that's like found money. People were mentioning Puka Nacua, and I'm like, just stop talking for a second.
It's too
the
hype is crazy.
My thought process is he should be on your roster. You don't have to play him this week, right? He showed enough, 22% target share, 25% target share. Jameis Winston, they're going to air it out. He could still hit this week. Like, he can make big plays because the air yards are there. But yeah, like there's risk with him this week. I think that's like, we're trying to be like, steady hand with him. We're not over consensus. We're just like, kind of like, you know what? We'll see how it goes from here. We like him, but not that much. And I'm gonna say with Ridley, like, dude, they have no target competition. The process is good. I get it. The Patriots, I'm like, if he gets Gonzalez this week, that's a problem for Ridley. So I'm kind of waiting to see. But similar to Jacoby Myers, he's gonna get a ton of targets. The offense is not good, but you kind of trust the process with these guys, and you could fire him up every so often. You could play him, but I do have a little bit concerns with Ridley, so that's why he's kind of in this range for us.
Jesse, I just hope my Patriots don't win another game here. Come on. We need to lose and get to that 101, boys. Let's go. Winning streaks are not in the 2024 manual, boys. Let's get it together.
Yeah, I thought with Jacoby Brissett, coming into that game, they were going to lose. But now he's like, you know what? I got it. I'm going to guide you down for a game-winning points. It's like, all right, man. Jets. Figure it out, Jets. All right, let's move on to the next tier. Our wide receivers, 37 through 42. The first one rounding this out, Romeo Doubs going up against the Lions defense that gives up the most receiving yards in the NFL. We like Doubs this week. You can play him. Next up, I lost my spot. Keenan Allen going up against the Arizona Cardinals. He's our wide receiver 38. The next guy, we're not sure if he's going to play. This is kind of why he's down so far. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver 39, going against Philadelphia Eagles. Our wide receiver 40, I think he is third in the NFL in targets. Wan'Dale Robinson going up against the Washington Commanders defense that has taken a turn and gotten a lot better. But overall, Wan'Dale, he's going to get targets. They're the worst kind of targets to get. So they just give you not that many fantasy points. Our wide receiver 41, Jalen Millen's very interesting this week, and I think we've got him out a little bit. Our wide receiver 42, rounding out this tier, is Jordan Addison going up in Indianapolis Colts defense, which has been very up or down, and I think that's putting it nicely. Who in this tier do you kind of want to highlight?
Yeah, I wonder if TJ Hawkinson is going to be back this week. I think they're thinking about it. But that would knock Jordan Addison for me a little bit. We got to talk about Jalen McMillan. I know you want to talk about Jalen McMillan. 8 and 7 targets over the last 2 weeks. Now that he's finally getting a ton of run, we are definitely saddened by the fact that Chris Godwin is out for the season. That Mike Evans is out for another game or two here, probably 2 more until the bye, and maybe more after that. Jalen McMillan is going to get all the opportunity. He's already getting it. The problem is he hasn't converted it yet. On those 8 and 7 targets, just 3 and 4 receptions, no more than 35 yards. He's also getting a carry per game, which is interesting the way that they're working with him. They're trying to get the ball in his hands. So far, it hasn't materialized. Against Kansas City, they're gonna have to figure out how to do that. So I think it's a tough matchup for him this week, but I really want to keep riding the Jalen McMillan train, and it's going to hit one of these days.
Yeah, it will. The Chiefs are a tough matchup just across the board defensively. I think they're like the 23rd, they're ranked 23rd, worst matchup for teams. So it's not the best matchup in the world, for fantasy points a lot and all stuff of that nature. But he's the second read in this offense right now. That's where it goes. It's Kate Otten, it's Jalen McMillan, and then it's the running backs, and then it's the sprinkle of Shepard and those guys. If you're the second read on a team with Baker Mayfield as your quarterback, it's been pretty good. Yeah. It's just not a good matchup for him, but I'm fine if you need a desperation flex play. I don't mind him in this matchup at all. I think he's going to be pretty good for you. So I'm more than willing to trust the process. I think he's a good NFL wide receiver. Hopefully it pays for us this week. We shall see. I will go up to, I think we'll do the 48 and then I'll kind of call it, this will be our last year.
Sure.
We'll call this the rest, I guess you could say. For wide receiver 43 to 48. Starting out, Xavier Legette going up against the Saints defense. He's the wide receiver 1 on that team. I think he's interesting. We'll kind of leave it at that. Wide receiver 44, Jalen McMillan going up against the Atlanta Falcons. Or sorry, Jalen Tolbert. So even McMillan's on my brain here. So Jalen Tolbert going up against the Falcons. Wide receiver 45, Tyler Lockett going up against the Rams, and defense that can very much be had. The offense has struggled. Hopefully they figure it out this week. Wide receiver 46, Jerry Jeudy going up against the Chargers in a not so great matchup. Wide receiver 47, Mr. Rome Odunze out of Washington going up against the Arizona Cardinals. And the last guy in this tier, Demario Douglas going up against the Tennessee Titans. Who do you kind of want to highlight in this group?
Nobody here, but you can shoot for upside with Xavier Legette. I think the New Orleans pass defense has really struggled in recent weeks. We talked about the loss of Paulson Adebo, and they're also having some just difficulty on the back end. Legette is the clear number 1 option, as you mentioned. Coker is also coming on, but there's nobody else. There's no tight ends here that are siphoning work away. Like you mentioned, the running backs not having an issue in terms of the passing game. They're not really getting that involved. I will say that it just came through that Dave Canales is deciding whether or not Jonathan Brooks will play this week. He is practicing. So that is exciting stuff that I think can only help to open up the offense. We know Carolina is not good. We know Carolina is not going to win this game, but we do hope to see them move the football. And the one way they're going to do it is get the ball to Xavier Legette. So make sure if you have to, I think he's a pretty good, decent sleeper option. He's probably available on your waiver wire.
Yeah, Legette and Coker are ones we should watch for sure. In deeper leagues, I don't mind flexing Coker in this matchup. I think he can get it there for you. But they're projected for 18.5 points. It's bottom of the barrel, and it's really tough because you're basically not expecting any touchdowns for any one of these guys, and that's the hard part. Because if they get a touchdown, it's more than likely on Chuba Hubbard. That's just kind of how I expect that to go. Mm-hmm. But you know what? They're fun, interesting. We get to this range of wide receiver, it's kind of just shoot for upside, right? Because the floor is so low with these guys, I would not worry about floor at all. So if you like a good guy, you want to go the Dontavian Wicks, you want to go the Christian Watson, you can do that. Is there anybody outside the top 48 that you kind of want to highlight as a potential guy you could play this week?
Like you said, you're shooting for upside. I don't mind Troy Franklin against that terrible Baltimore defense. I think he can get behind the defense. He just has to catch the ball. That's been the difficulty for Troy Franklin so far in the early season. So, you hope he's able to do that. Demarcus Robinson had 2 touchdowns last weekend. I don't love to chase points, but I've been chasing points this entire show because he's playing Seattle. Like there's a lot of players this week who seem to have really amazing back-to-back matchups. If Seattle is able to somehow corral either Puka or Cooper, I don't think they can do both. But if they can corral one of those guys, Demarcus Robinson could be absolutely wide open once again for another touchdown play. And then Noah Brown, we saw he only put it together last week because he caught that long bomb Hail Mary. But Noah Brown is involved in this offense, and they're playing the New York Giants. So I don't mind that play as a flex either.
Yeah, and another guy who's kind of just gone under the radar is Darius Slayton. He had another four receptions, 108 yards. Like, that offense is looking for playmakers. He's very much that upside shot, boom bust, because the floor is 0 with him. But you've seen like he can give it to you. So if you want to like take a shot on Darius Slayton, I don't mind it against Washington because I think it can be had deep or over the top. Like he had a big 50-yard reception. I think that's what we had last week. So you can do that. But yeah.
Well, one guy I want to bring up who's buried in our rankings is Deontay Johnson. We're going to be moving him up throughout the week. We're just not sure how high. I'm pretty sure he will play. I would be very surprised if Jim Harbaugh came out and John Harbaugh, I keep mixing them up. If John Harbaugh came out and said that he wasn't going to play this week. So I think he plays. Of course, as we've seen with these wide receivers transitioning teams, he probably gets limited use. So he's not going to be up in his usual 20 wide receiver 20-ish ranking. He'll probably be closer to, back end wide receiver 35 or something like that. But Deontay Johnson is someone who we didn't mention. And then DK Metcalf, I doubt he plays, but he's another guy who's buried in our rankings because we don't think he's playing. However, Coach Mike McDonald said he is optimistic. He just said this a few minutes ago that DK Metcalf will play. So we'll just more situations to monitor, and these rankings are always in flux.
Yeah, we've seen the Seahawks. They desperately need DK Metcalf. I know people say he's not a pro-table alpha, but he makes a huge impact that offense. We saw it. We saw last week. They struggled offensively. So they need DK Metcalf because it makes it a lot easier on JSN and it makes it easier on Lockett. So we will see what happens with both of those wide receivers. If they're going to play, they're going to move up. So it's kind of TBD. But yeah, that's our week 9 rankings, folks. So we hope you liked them. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. That means the world to us. Like, just make sure you do it at the bottom. It's just a little button. All you do is click it. We very much appreciate that. But yeah, we're exactly. I think it's that bottom right corner. You know where it is. So we're going on Saturday. We'll be doing our live roundtable show. So you're going to join us from that. Our timing on that, we don't know, but it's usually around noonish Pacific time, about 3 p.m. Eastern time. You want to? We talk everything fantasy football there. So if you want to have a good time, communicate, talk with us live, we'll do that. And then our 6-star show is on Sunday. So yeah, so that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition. So our rankings are done this week. We're just looking forward to seeing how it plays out for us. So for Jeremy, for myself, for SC, and for Aaron, we are the FF Universe. And yeah, thank you for joining us, and we will see you later this week. Listen up.